and China, which is a very significant topic for Turkey and China as well. So in our second panel, we are going to look at some international and regional issues. But I have to say that it seems like our region, the Middle East, is more active than any other region in the world at the moment, unfortunately, with some negative developments. Luckily, we have quite important experts on regional issues as well in our panel. That's why I think it's going to be quite informative to understand what kind of cooperations and approaches China and Turkey has concerning our region and also some international global issues. Let me, before taking too much time, because we have 5 panelists, very distinguished panelists, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time speaking myself. Then we will start with our first panelist, Miss Wang Jinhui. She is actually going to talk about the outer space issues. So I'm not going to pronounce the exact title, but we all very curious about what kind of activities are in outer space, especially Sino-Russian strategic partnership is concerned. Please, floor is yours.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and scholars, thank you for the opportunity to join this significant conference, and thanks to Chinese Embassy and SETA for supporting and organizing. It is an honor to speak with you today on a topic that connects the strategic realities of our time with the rapidly evolving domain of outer space. My speech is titled From Geopolitics to Astropolitics, Sino-Russian Cooperation in the Outer Space and its Impacts on Eurasian Regional Security. Okay, thank you. I guess some of you maybe have heard about this new theory, astropolitics, but maybe you're not very familiar with this newly created theory. So allow me to begin by introducing the theoretical foundation of astropolitics developed by American professor Dolman of the U.S. Air Force University. In his influential book, Astropolitics, which was published in 2002, but at the beginning of this century, Dolman famously wrote, "Who controls low Earth orbit controls near Earth space, and who controls near Earth space dominates Terra." Terra here means the Earth. Who dominates Terra determines the destiny of the whole humanity. This.
Very sorry to interrupt, and I forgot to say that we have all 10 minutes each because we have 5 speakers in the panel. So that's why I know the very active issue. I just would like to have 10 minutes for you.
Okay, thank you. I will try to be as quick as possible. So his quote highlights his central idea: space is the ultimate strategic high ground in the 21st century. Control over key orbital positions, especially low Earth orbit. It's not only about satellite dominance, but also about influence over global communication, intelligence, and power projection. And he also warned against the weaponization of space. Instead, he advocated for state-led rulemaking and responsible space governance to avoid conflict and confrontation and maintain order beyond Earth. So this theoretical framework helps us to understand how space has become a new arena of strategic competition, what we now call astropolitics, and set the stage for examining Sino-Russian cooperation in outer space within that context. So let me now turn to some of my key findings of my recent studies about Sino-Russian cooperation in the outer space. Over the past 2 decades, the space relationship between Russia and China has slightly changed. It has changed from one-sided technological assistance to a more balanced strategic partnership, where Russia used to be the dominant player in the history of Sino-Russian relations. China's rapid rise in space capabilities, both technologically and financially, has changed this dynamic. So today, the cooperation between two countries shared strategic aims, enhancing national security, resisting Western pressures, and promoting a multipolar world order. In other words, space collaboration is not just about science or technology or space exploration. It's also a political and strategical tool. So despite differences now in capabilities or some mistrust between Russia and China, both sides have shown a strong willingness to work together, even in sensitive areas like missile defense and early warning radar and so on. In China and Russia's strategic cooperation in the outer space extends across several major dimensions: strategically, diplomatically, and economically and technologically. This kind of cooperation makes it harder now for Western countries to isolate either country in the space domain. One of the most important findings that China is becoming the leading partner in this cooperation relationship between two countries. Historically, Russia was a provider of know-how and technologies in past 2 decades. But today, it is China that supplies capital, innovation, and political initiative, especially in long-term projects like International Lunar Research Station. But Russia still plays a very critical role in these cooperation relations. And Russia, considering of Russia's contribution of key technologies like rocket engines and some early warning radars and missile defense systems, gives the partnership technical depth. Importantly, this cooperation also reflects a joint desire to reshape global space governance. While China and Russia have not created an alternative to American Artemis Accord, their joint lunar program, the International Lunar Research Station, is open to participation from other countries. Because the time is limited, so I will not give you details about how many projects they are running now during China and Russia's cooperation in the outer space. I want to talk about the its impacts on Eurasian regional security. First of all, when talking about its impact on Eurasian regional security, I wanted to connect it with China's broader diplomatic visions, such as particularly China's Global Development Initiative, which was funded in 2021. And so China's Global Development Initiative was launched in 2021 to promote sustainable growth, especially in the global south. Space technology here plays a key role in this vision. While with China and Russia space cooperation, countries in Eurasia actually gain access to practical services like climate and disaster monitoring and digital connectivity. They are essential tools for modern development. And meanwhile, the Beidou Chinese navigation system Beidou and Russian navigation system GLONASS also support infrastructure and logistics under China's Belt and Road Initiative, improving navigation accuracy for land and sea transport across Eurasia. And meanwhile, the Global Civilization Initiative promotes dialogue, inclusiveness, and peaceful coexistence. These values can also guide how we approach outer space, where the US-led Artemis Accords have drawn a wide criticism for being exclusionary. The China-Russia International Lunar Research Station is designed as an open platform. It welcomes participation from all countries, especially countries from Eurasian region. Together, China and Russia support a vision of outer space that is collaborative, peaceful, and multilateral. This approach builds a more balanced model of space governance and reduce the risk of confrontation in the outer space. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for this very valuable presentation. We clearly learned from your presentation that the cooperation between China and Russia in outer space provides a lot of interest, but especially they guarantee that these two countries will not be isolated in space by some certain other countries. That's, I think, quite significant, that this cooperation also paves the way of involvement of other countries like Turkey, for example, in outer space activities.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much. As I said, unfortunately, we have just 10 minutes for each panelist, and there will be question and answer session afterwards. So that means we will be continuing to talk on these significant issues. Our second panelist is going to be Kadir Temiz. We are lucky to have him here because he's head of ORSAM, meaning the Middle East Research Center, and we know that Middle East in the top agenda at the moment. So I think it will be quite, enjoyable to listen him.
Okay, thank you very much, Yücel Hocam. Thank you very much for the invitation. Actually, I will try to draw a picture today about China's regional and international responsibilities and how these responsibilities shapes our region, our close region in the Middle East, and its impacts on Turkey-China relations. And first of all, I have a definition for Chinese foreign policy in our region and generally in other regions as well. This is a cautious diplomacy and very concerned on some specific issues like, the military intervention and non-intervention especially. This is a peaceful world and a harmony and negotiation and a political way of crisis management. They are all the Chinese foreign policy principle that we observed in the last couple of decades. But what I claim that we are coming to the edge of this foreign policy principles and foreign policy perspective. There should be a shift, and we are actually seeing this kind of shift in some cases, even in the Middle East. This cautious diplomacy shifts toward a more selective engagement, in my opinion. And I don't know what will be the next steps, but probably we will see more active and diplomacy in our region and in the world. Probably in the next couple of decades. But for the moment, we have two different cases to show both advantages and disadvantages of this selective engagement. The first one on Iran-Saudi, mediation, let me say like that. And after they agreed in Beijing, and then what we see in the region is an hope. And who gave this hope to our region? China. So China's image was very positive at that time. And China used this as a tool of, public and propaganda and public diplomacy. And we have seen in Beijing and other capitals, how China uses this in its foreign policy, strategy. But at the end of the day, there are also, yes, it is an advantage, for China and for countries, and China is an alternative power come to our region and find us not a solution, but is at last, and we see a kind of solution offered by an alternative power. But I claim that this advantage sometimes creates disadvantages. Like in the case of Syria. And China, again, want to get more involved in Syrian case by supporting the Assad regime from the beginning of the Syrian, civil war to the end. And what happened at the end of the day, regime failed, and then Syria, we have seen a kind of Syrian revolution. So this cautious diplomacy, concerning both sides sometimes, not get a direct action in any kind of conflict areas, conflict-ridden regions, did not provide a good reputation for Chinese foreign policy in Syrian case. So I'm defining this. Sometimes there is a economy security nexus we are discussing in the literature of international economy, politics, and international relations as well. So what does it mean? There is a correlation between economy and security. Generally, we see China as an economic actor in our region. Yes, as good, trade and financial investment, and through the BRI, we see hope and positive engagement. But this creates a kind of security dynamics as well. We cannot ignore this security dynamics, because as long as you invest, as long as you reached a level of, for example, $50 billion trade volume between China and Turkey, at the end of the day, you have to see some security concerns regarding Turkey, because you have investment, you have big trade relationship in Turkey or in other region of the Middle East, in other countries of the Middle East. So this economic rise of China creates a kind of security concern actually for both regional countries and China as well. But the problem here, we don't see any kind of alternative, or concrete solution from Chinese side to this conflict and to these security concerns, or the security problems of our regions. For example, let me see this Palestinian issue. And since the October 7, we see, heavy Israeli occupation, a heavy Israeli fight against the Gazan people, against the Palestinians. Yes, but we see selective engagement. This cautious diplomacy shifted toward the selective engagement. How we understood it, China gathered 14 Palestinian factions in Beijing, and Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang met with them. And what we have seen, yes, there is a positive contribution from Chinese side. But what happened next? Heavy Gazan occupation and heavy, Israeli, fight in our region, and Israeli attacks. But there was no any further reaction from Chinese side. There's the limits of this, this shift, this selective engagement. But sometimes this selection should have some, normative and regulative forces. What I mean is that if China wants to be more influential in our region, in parallel to its economic interests, of course, then we have to see Chinese proposals and Chinese concrete proposals to solution of our crisis, because they are real. People lost their lives, and ten thousands of people lost their life in Gaza, in Palestine, since 2 years actually, because of the Israeli, attacks. And then, if you look at now the current situation in Iran, you can easily see this problematic, circle now turning around Iran. Now, nobody knows the exact, outcome of this, conflict. But China, what we expect from responsibility side, in the first panel, we have discussed this and how, responsible, power or responsible great power. So what we want to see is, yes, a kind of, Chinese, involvement in this diplomacy and offer a solution to this this conflict and to this debate. So when it comes to China-Turkey relations, we see this shifting as well. Yes, in Turkey-China relation, we see this selective engagement. For example, compartmentalize our relations, economy, finance, and culture, and political issues, and then we discuss the security in a different, perspective or in a different compartment. So that's a good way to deal with our problems because, in this selective engagement, then we can find more options and more room to discuss our problems. For example, yes, economic relations are going well, although it's an asymmetrical interdependency we observe from Turkish side. But at the end of the day, yes, we support this trade relations. This volume is will be much more beneficial for both countries in the near future. But we shouldn't ignore the security aspect of these economic relations. I mean, for example, the Uyghur issue. Now we have this, and it's a reality, it's an elephant in the room, but we shouldn't ignore the security implication of this. Some of Chinese friends emphasize the anti-terrorism or fight against the terrorism, but we have to name it exactly. Okay, don't need to, run away anymore from these problems. That's the Uyghur issue, that's the Turkey are dealing with, and that's the China should deal with it from rational perspective. There should be another cooperation, not only small and, ethnic and religious perspective, but broad definition of terrorism, what we understand from our region, from the international perspective, then we have to discuss it and find a solution to our problems. So in terms of Turkish-China relations, three, outcomes I will mention, and then I will finish my presentation. The first one, we have to find way to this interdependency, asymmetric interdependency in trade relations and other issues as well. The second one is, of course, the nature of the Chinese great power capacity, and or of course some hegemonic tendencies generally we observe in Asia Pacific, but in our region we don't observe it. Shanghai Cooperation Organization and through the BRI, China much more cooperative than before. But the nature of this China's great power capacity in our region, like this panel, we have to continue to discuss. And the third one and the last one, we need a kind of regulations and norm-based understanding of each other in our region, and hope to find a common ground for this discussion in the near future. Okay, thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kadir, for this presentation, which touches on very significant issues. First of all, the problems in the Middle East is really a serious, a set of serious disputes because a lot of people are losing their life. And China is a great power, and quite justifiably, there is always an expectation that China is involved more in the region by providing concrete proposals, maybe concrete settlements, and that's a quite justifiable expectation, I think, expectations from the region. And also there are some other issues. Kadir explained that there is still a lot of room for the cooperation to deal with these issues between China and Turkey. Okay, thank you very much. And our third panelist, Mr. Yao Jinxiang. Actually, Zhao is going to talk about opportunities facing the Middle East under the new situation. Please.
Thank you, and thanks SETA and the Chinese Embassy give me the invitation to attend this very important seminar in the very special time. Why I think it is a very special time for us? Because I think in the global context, we are under many uncertainties made by the Trump administration. And in the regional context, we are faced, I think we are faced with one of the biggest conflict we have ever seen in the past maybe decades, 10 years, the Israel and the Iran's conflict. And I think they're very dangerous. Yesterday, when we in the flight to the Istanbul, I say that the Russia, China, and the US, they are all began to evacuate their citizens in Israel and Iran. And I think it might be a very important we faced in the Middle East, and then then about the opportunities we faced in the Middle East. I think we should know what we faced in the Middle East, the risks, and we also need to know how to overcome these risks. And I believe we still have a very bright future in the Middle East in the future, and I think we should be very optimistic about the future. And first about the challenges. I think the first giant challenge is Israel-Iran conflict right now, and how far it will be and how long it will last. My concern is that the conflict might not be the conflict between Israel and Iran, and it may involve a regional conflict, which involve all the countries in the Middle East. I think the past 2 days we are talking about whether whether Trump will involve in the conflict, whether Iran will block the Hormuz Strait, and whether the nuclear weapons will be used in the battlefield. And I think it is very horrible for me, and I think it's very horrible for all the people in the Middle East. And I still remember 2 years ago, 2023 February, our institute welcomed the President Raisi of Iran for state visit to state visit to China, and our institute also held a dialogue with President Raisi, and we have very good dialogue. And Professor Jinxiang also joined the dialogue. And then in March, we can see the reconciliation between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And I think it's very good. It's a good start for the peace in the Middle East. But then October 7th occurred, and everything has changed until now. And I think the current conflict between Iran and Israel is an eruption of all tensions in the 18 months. And the tensions were accumulating day after day, month after month, but the world failed to find a way out. And it's a responsibility of us all, not just for any one country. And I think if we go back to the current Israel-Iran conflict, we should do 3 things. First is to give more pressure to Israel. And the second thing is we should do more things to the JCPOA negotiations. And I think the third thing is we should deal with the Palestinian question more seriously. We did not do much things in these 3 things. And I think it is still not too late for us to act now. Right now, we can still do more in these 3 things. We can help to change this kind of circumstances. And I think the second challenge might be the neglect or ignorance of the Palestinian question, the Palestinian issue. I have this kind of feeling since the start of this year, and I joined the Munich conference with Chinese delegation. And in the Munich conference, I had a very strong feeling that people did not care about the Palestinian question, and there is not any panel labeled as Palestinian. And but there are many panels with many Israel participants will join. And the biggest panel in the Munich conference is labeled as Syria, the new era of Syria. And many people care about Syria, not the things that happen in the Palestine. That's my feeling since the start of this year. So I think in the past 6 months in 2025, we will all care about the Ukraine, about the tariffs, about the JCPOA, but people did not care about the changes in the Gaza crisis. Even now, when Israel and Iran, they have some conflict right now, Israel still have some military actions in Gaza, but we did not care about what is happening in Gaza right now. So I think we should care more about what is happening in the Gaza. So I think we should rebalance the global focus, pay more attention to the Gaza crisis, because it is a root cause of all Middle East conflict. And I think that France and Saudi Arabia, they want to organize a seminar to talk about the two-state solution, talk about the Palestine question in the New York UN, maybe in the next few weeks. I think it's a very good start. I think we should talk about the Palestine question in a very in the framework of the UN and with more participants. In the past, I think the world will act very slow in the Palestine question, but I think the Israel and Iran conflict right now might be a wake-up call for the world to care more about the Palestine question. And then about the third challenges, and I think it is the economy. I think in the past few years, I had many dialogues with some Middle East scholars, and they all talk about the transformation of economic model in the Middle East. In my opinion, there are two different kinds of Middle East countries. First is Middle East countries who have a lot of oil resources, such as Gulf countries. But right now, these kind of Gulf countries, they know they cannot depend solely on the oil resources, and they want to find a new model to develop their economy, such as the Saudi's 2030 vision. And we also have a different kind of Middle East countries who did not have so much oil resources and depend on exports or depend on tourism, maybe such as Egypt and Turkey. Depend much on exports. So for these countries, they still want to find a new economic development model, but it's not very easy. These countries need find a proper industry. They want to find more investment, and they need to find more talented people. But we know that many Middle East countries, they have very strong design to develop their economies. But I read some separate yearbook in the past 2 years, and I know that Middle East countries, they spend more money on their military expenses, not in their economic development. And I think it's a new change in the Middle East politics. And when faced with all these kind of challenges, we need to overcome a lot of difficulties, but we should not neglect the potential opportunities faced by the Middle East countries. And in my opinion, we still have at least 3 kind of opportunities. And the first opportunities is, I think the Middle East has changed. When we talk about the geopolitics or the power politics in the Middle East, and in my opinion, right now, many Middle East countries, they did not so much care about the politics or their bloc politics in the Middle East. They care about their economy, their development, not geopolitics. And I think it's a very big change in the Middle East right now. That's the first opportunity. And I think the second opportunity is regional integration and the multilateral mechanisms. And I think it's a good opportunity for the Middle East countries. For example, the SOC, the Shanghai Organization of Cooperation, we mentioned in the morning's panel. And I think many Middle East countries want to join the SCO. They want to play a more important role in SCO. And for example, the GCC countries, in the past few years, the GCC countries become to promote the GCC mechanisms, and China also promote the GCC FTA with the GCC countries. And then about the BRICS, I think in the past 2 days, in the past 2 years, 6 new countries joined the BRICS as a new member, and 4 of them are Middle East countries, and 5 of them are Islamic countries. And I think the very important things in the development of BRICS. And this year, the BRICS also have 10 new partnerships, partner members, and it is very important progress of the BRICS mechanisms. And I still remember last year, the Foreign Minister Fei Dan traveled to China, and I also joined the meeting with Foreign Minister Fei Dan, and I have a question towards Fei Dan, and I asked him whether Turkey will join the BRICS in the near future, and in my opinion, that Fei Dan may think BRICS as a bargaining chip towards the EU membership. But I think in the last months, Vietnam become a new partnership of the BRICS mechanism. So I still have questions for the Turkish participants in this seminar. What did Turkey view about the BRICS? What's your opinions to join a member of the BRICS mechanism? So that's my question. And I think the third opportunity for the Middle East is about the China and the Middle East countries cooperation. And I still think it's very important. And I think the cooperation between China and the Middle East in two aspects. The first is in security aspects. In 2023, China helped to mediate relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And in 2024, China helps 14 Palestinian sections to come to Beijing and sign the Beijing Declaration. And I think that is what China do in the security domain. And then in the economic domain, I think in 2022, China held a summit with Saudi, with GCC, and with Arab states. And I think last month, China also held a summit with the GCC countries and Asian countries. And I think it's a very important cooperation between China, Middle East, and Southeast Asia countries. So these are the three opportunities we are faced right now. And my last word is, I think we should more deal with the current conflicts more seriously, especially in the Palestinian question and the Israel-Iran conflicts. And we shall still be very optimistic about the future, the bright future of the Middle East. So thank you.
Very much. Actually, I forgot to say that Mr. Yao is from Chinese Institute for International Studies. So thank you very much. Also, the point that you emphasized, that there should be more pressure on Israel in the region, for the settlement of some basic disputes, and also the settlement of Palestinian issues is taken more seriously by other countries, are quite significant issues for a peace in the region. The BRICS, maybe our experts would like to answer at the end whether Turkey would like to join BRICS later on. We will see. Okay, thank you again. And our next panelist is Hakkı Uygur. I know him for a long time, and again, it's really good to have him here because Hakkı has been studying Iran for a long time. He used to be head of Iranian Research Center on Iran, actually. So I am sure we will be benefiting a lot from his presentation. Now he's from National Intelligence Academy. And thank you for joining, Hakkı. Please.
Thank you very much, Professor, for having me. Actually, I prepared a presentation on, Turkish regional policies and, China-Turkish relationship on this issue, but it was not Iran on the case when I was invited. So we talked just Professor Yücel and more focus on, Iran-Israel conflict, as my colleague said. Now it's the most important issue in the region. But first, let me talk about my first presentation, very core, topic. I wanted to just say, Turkish foreign policy and regional policy during the last 1 century, 100 years, was very predictable. And mostly it was, affected by a wider international, atmosphere and, relationship. What I want to say is, after World War I, Turkey made a choice and said, peace at home and, peace in the world. It was a, necessary approach to international issues rather than very, let's say, luxury, choice. But even at that time, they showed that, they are very interested in Turkish, national interest, even beyond the borders. And when any time in the early periods of, Republic after World War II, when Turkey find any, opportunity, we show we are really following a strategic autonomy and perspective from them. Like, Cyprus operation in 1974, although our, main policies in the region very much in line with, Western countries like Arab-Israel conflict and other issues, but in Cyprus, we show that we are very much interested in our, national interest, and we can follow it as, alone. And when it comes to today, I think it's very important to understand even our party policies in this century, 21st century. I think it's said when our party came to power, as 9/11 events, incidents happened, and invasion of Afghanistan, then Iraq affected our foreign policy a lot, and Turkey tried to adopt itself these developments rather than create a foreign policy independently. So this was my first presentation, but I want to focus on Iran because actually what's happening in the region, especially after October 7, everything is about Iran. We talk a lot during this around 2 years with lots of panels, workshops, seminars, etc. And we know from the first day, Israel patience over Iran is, on Iran is over. And they showed that because although it's not like that, Hamas, is not proxy power of Iran. We do not accept Hamas as, independent organization in the region and try to defend its, own interests. But Israel doesn't see, it like that. Israel see it as a, regional network, taking order, money, weapon, everything from Iran. And in this regard, it's not very different than Hezbollah or, other Iranian-backed organization, Houthis, etc. So we saw that what they did in Gaza is what absolutely clear genocide, killed around 60,000, civilian people. And then we saw Hezbollah, they hit lots of, very important blows and destroy all commanders of Hezbollah, even Nasrallah himself. Then Syria, regime change. Although, of course, oppositions toppled the Bashar Assad, there is no doubt that, but Israel's, perspective in this regard was not very, let's say, we shouldn't ignore that. Also, Israel's position was very important. Why I'm saying that? Because at the first stage of Syrian People's Revolution, Israeli government was very opposed to this revolution, and then we know what the United States position, how changed. So now we are talking about Iran. Iran, our big, immediate neighbor. We have lots of relationship in terms of economy, trade, energy, transportation. Hundreds of thousands of Iranian people living in Turkey, working, studying, etc. And are all, transport, to Southern Asia and, Central Asia via Iran are, all goods, etc., going by Iran. So we talk a lot on this issue. We cannot tolerate any, any chaos, any regime collapse in Iran. But unfortunately, as we saw in the last couple of, days, this Israeli attack and United States, as usual, support of, Israel caused this damage. And the main question is, whether, as my colleague said, Trump himself or United States will join this, battle or war or not, because in my opinion, maybe lots of people will not join me, will not accept this view, but Israel done its job. It started and it's hit a lot of, again, very successful operation like they did in Hezbollah operations. And they kept lots of, commanders and, Iranian, especially IRG commanders hit some, nuclear facilities, etc. But it seems that Israel coming to end and its limits. And it seems that job is not done yet from their perspective. That's why they need the United States and, much more weapon and etc. So why is this important for Turkey? I try to explain why it's important for China, because as Dr. Kadir and again my colleague from China explained, China is getting more visible in our region, like, mediation, efforts between Saudi Arabia and Iran. It was very successful one. Although I didn't have a lot of hope, but it worked until today. Although it was surprising for me because I know how deep this disagreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran, but again, it worked. It was a very successful one. But also, moreover, this 25-year strategic agreement between Beijing and Tehran makes it more complicated, because we know that Iran, from Western perspective, is a problematic country. It's not normal one, but China showed that even with country like Iran, I can sign a 25-year long-term agreement. I can, I can come into region, and that's why China's position in this term very important. And it's not just two, examples. On the other hand, we, all of us, all of experts, professors, etc., studying these issues, and for the couple of years, 5 years or so, whenever we read an article and report and analysis from Western, institutions, especially security-related ones, we see almost they are talking about axis of China, Russia, North Korea, Iran altogether. I don't know it's true 100% or not. I don't want to say, but at least from Western perspective, it seems like that. There is a, axis, and it's anti-Western axis, and, they have to handle with that. So that's why I think, in my opinion, China, like other countries like Turkey, like French position was very interesting. Although we are not always at the same page with France, but France also declared that they would not support regime change by force in Iran, like Turkish position. I think China's position is the same. So we need to, handle it, because otherwise, in our region, in Middle East, as we talked from the beginning of the panel, there will not be any state, proper state to have collaboration with any country, rather than, failed states. Look at, around us. And of course, Turkey is not, doesn't have impunity. Maybe tomorrow, we don't know, because as far as I understand, Turkey is very concerned, because at the first day, Turkish, high-level officials had a emergency meeting, like, foreign minister, Minister of Defense, and, head of intelligence organization. We take it very seriously, because we understand how it's important from lots of, levels. And when it comes to, other, just a couple of, other issues, I think Syrian issue, as Kadir, underlined, yes, Beijing supported Baas regime. We know that, and I was surprised, actually, he visited Beijing in 2022 or 2023. I was surprised because it was very big, ceremony and everything. I understood China doesn't see him like we see him, as a dictator, as a bloody. But nowadays we have another page in front of us, and I think Syria is also in urgent need of, foreign investment, cooperation, and I think Turkey and China could have very effective, collaboration in this area. And the same thing is, valid for Iraq. Big projects like, development road projects in Iraq and Turkey, another, again, field, because we know China is very interested in, connectivity projects. Maybe this could be another, field of cooperation. But last sentence, as Kadir said, now we need to handle very security-related issues. All these things we can talk about: economy, trade, soft power, others. actually it does not mean a lot because, you know, we see, as, you know, President Erdogan said, any country see any power within, you know, itself or trust another superpower, they can act, you know, in very rational way. So I think China, if this region is important for them, if, you know, and actually I wrote an article, I didn't publish yet, but I argued that China has to help Iran. It's not a choice, because otherwise, as we don't see Hamas as a proxy power of Iran, but Israel see it, again, Iran regional policies in line with China's macro policies. We do not, you know, forget that. And if USA and Israel, because I see both of these countries together, not separate from each other, and this recent attack, and of course with the support of United States, if Iran so easily puts, you know, behind from the scene, it will not good sign for any country, including China. Thank you.
Thank you. Hakkı, really important points, like Iran is a neighbor of Turkey, so whatever happens there is really directly affecting Turkey as well. There is a danger that the US would be involved in the conflict, the war against Iran, as Israel may come to its limits, and if we just hope that the war will not be extended and spread beyond this existing conflict. Of course, there is no better position to collaborate for Turkey and China, maybe, to stop this conflict as soon as possible. There's another issue. Actually, as far as I know, China has a past of relations with Iran, so Turkey and China may have a better position to collaborate. Okay, our last panelist is going to be Jinxiang. He's from Shanghai Institute for International Studies, and he's going to talk about regional and global dynamics and the change as far as the China-Turkey relations are concerned. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's always my greatest pleasure to be a part of the discussion in Turkey. Okay, Turkey used to live as a neighbor of us, and you also used to live as a neighbor of European countries, but you are still living as a neighbor in the neighborhood of the European countries. Okay, but you have a very famous tourist souvenir. Okay, the evil's eyes. Okay, but the eyes are actually blue. Okay, so we are very happy. The eyes are not black. We always are black. Okay, so sometimes I do feel comfortable to be in Turkey. Okay, in Turkey. Okay, my topic about China and Turkey cooperation on regional and international issues, but I would like to say I will try to focus. Okay, for the regional issues, I would like to say 3 words to define the region. I think the first one is fragmentation, which is actually one of the long-term fallout or implications of the dismemberment of the Ottoman Empire. Okay. Secondly, chaos, and even more chaos. Today, it is defined actually by Israel's brutal invasions into Gaza and unreasonable strike against the Iranian targets. Okay, but I would like to say, I would like to use another word to describe today's situation in this region. That is the corruption of the political ethics. And the red lines have been broken many times, and we can even not imagine what kind of red lines Israel will observe in the future. Okay, what are the red? Do we still have red lines? Okay, the corruption of political ethics. Okay, and I will talk about China Turkey cooperation. I would like to have 3 points or arguments about that. Firstly, I think China and Turkey can be partner advocating for the principle of sovereignty. It is actually an older topic, old argument, but it should always be mentioned in a fresh way. And this year marks the 80th anniversary of the conclusion of the Second World War and the founding of the United Nations. One of the foundational principles of the UN Charter and the conclusion of the Second World War is the sovereignty principle. Though the sovereignty principle actually originated in European countries, okay, after Westphalia. But unfortunately, we have seen that a lot of things happen in the world without regard to the sovereignty principle. Not only not in Asia Pacific area, we have a Taiwan issue, which is a part of China certainly, and in West Asia, I think we have seen even more serious, harm to the principle of sovereignty. And Palestinians, okay, you talked about a lot of Palestinians. Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory is a very, very typical example of that. Palestine and Israel actually should have the same kind of rights over a piece of land, which is in the resolution 181 UN General Assembly in 1947. Okay, they have the equal right, but unfortunately, Israel's occupation seriously undermines the legitimate nationhood of Palestine. Okay, and the latest example is Israel's strike against the Iranian facilities. I'm actually here in Turkey. I'm thinking about the principle of sovereignty. I really doubt whether the mobiles of those people sitting here, particularly the directors of SETA and directors of OSAN, are monitored by Israelis. I really Erdogan's mobile is safe. I really doubt that. Okay, so I mean the principle of sovereignty is still very important. I think China and Turkey can cooperate to advocate the principle of sovereignty. Secondly, China and Turkey should work together to construct inclusive security in the region. Inclusive security, when we talk about that, we have a lot of problems in this region. But the most detrimental one is Israel's efforts to maximize its own security interests. And if Israel still keeps this kind of mentality, there will be no peace in the region. Okay, so when Chinese, when we talk about security, we think we should not have this kind of mentality. We advocate for common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. Okay, and it is because of this kind of guidelines we mediated the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Okay, and we have also seen a lot of efforts that Turkey have invested in mediating the international conflicts in the region and beyond the region, for instance, between Russia and Ukraine. I think in the future, China and Turkey can cooperate in this regard and to promote peace and reconciliation in the region. Thirdly, I think China and Turkey can be partner of promoting the principle of mutual respect among civilizations. Okay, and there are certainly a lot of civilizations in the world. Okay, but the three are most active: the Chinese civilization, the Islamic civilization, and the Western civilizations. And Huntington said that the clashes of civilizations will define the future world order after the Cold War. But I would argue that the differences of civilizations will not necessarily result in confrontation. But if there is real confrontation or clashes among civilizations, it is because of the sense of superiority of Western civilization. I think it is because of this kind of sense of superiority that the United States have launched so many wars in the region, particularly after the Second World War. Okay, and China is not sufficiently respected by the United States, and Turkey has not been sufficiently respected by the Western civilization. Okay, one of the reasons that you fear to join the EU is something like that. Many people told me it is because that Europeans, that you are a Muslim country. Okay, so I think we should enshrine the principle of mutual respect among civilizations. Okay, by that I would argue we should first oppose the sense of superiority of the Western civilization. Okay, I will try to refrain from talking about the Iran issues. If I have questions, I would like to actually I would like to talk about the Iran issues. I'm usually regarded as an expert on Iranian issues in China. Okay, I will just stop here. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you. When you emphasize the respect for sovereignty principle, this is very fundamental for the region. Some countries, I think there's no need to name these countries, but they don't care about the sovereignties of certain states and nations. And if the international law is created on the principle of respect for the sovereignty and the political borders, and unfortunately, after many centuries, and we came to a point that there are still countries who don't care about the sovereignty principle. This is a key to the settlement of many issues in the region. That's why I think it's quite significant, and the respect for the differences in the civilizations in the region. And we know that some countries are really, tackling with other civilizations in the region as if they are enemies, historical enemies to them. Okay, we have completed the presentations of our panelists, and thank you very much for our panelists for keeping the time really strictly. And so we have a certain amount of time for questions and answers, I think, which are quite significant, since the topic is very active now, especially in the Middle East, but also the first presentation, for example, outer space issues and some other international issues, and China and Turkey, how they cooperate on these issues, are quite a topic in our time. So I'm sure there are questions, and we will have some more chance to look at deeply in these issues. Okay, we can start with you. And
okay, thank you.
Could you just also introduce yourself?
Come on. My name is Joe. I'm the president of Jinxiang, same level as Musia and Tusia. I live in Ankara for 10 years. I'm very happy to be invited by our commercial counselor minister comes to attend, but you made a mistake, SETA, because 5 o'clock in the morning I fly from Istanbul to attend, but my office Temple Prime. But I was so surprised to see our excellency here, but there is no Chinese national flag.
Oh.
Where? So it's very surprised. This is a diplomat
You mean
mistakes.
in the entrance, you mean?
No, here.
Here, okay.
Because you are top. Because I met your colleague 8 years ago in Istanbul. Secondly, this gentleman just said, because I only listen my Chinese colleague and Turkish colleague. Actually, Pakistan already start support Iran. You mean who stand behind Pakistan? Who stand behind Pakistan against India? So now everybody want peace because I stayed in Ankara for 10 years. And every day I have visit 64 provinces across Turkey among 81. So no, I almost know everywhere.
I didn't see so many streets.
Yes. So I like Turkey so much. This is like a second home. And Turkey actually, how to say, the strategic location is so important. Number one, because Istanbul is the international capital city of the world. Now, I don't know what's the problem, but nobody want to see Middle East have wars. This means world wars. Because yes, up to now, because I'm the leader of Chinese company here in Turkey, I know everything. I know every Chinese company. Actually, up to now, we have summarized and at least, including BYD and Cherry, more than 21 Chinese big projects, and the investment totally amount 11 billion US dollar investment is flashing into Turkish market, because Turkey is a so nice strategy, because you export all kinds of product to surrounding about 1.6 billion US population and about 190 countries. Because every day I made a research study. I'm not a researcher, but I'm very interested in listening. I think it is not so easy for China and Turkey to come together, because we are not so strong enough to fight against somebody and somebody plus somebody. Because we know Istanbul, as my information, every day there are about 200 to 300 billion US dollar in the black market. So that is why Istanbul, Turkey economy not fall down like Argentina, second Argentina, because every time I share with my colleague from China that currently Istanbul like Hong Kong from 1920 to 1949, because it is a safe island to attract all kinds of money, because you are so kind country to attract everything. So I heard maybe, yes, in one topic, or one lady mentioned in the morning speech that you will talk about some visa issues to China, mentioned to our excellent ambassador. This is not possible, because you also understand Istanbul state so many foreigners who only pay money to buy houses, and they can easily get a passport. Even now UK, they will check whether your identity, you are real Turkey citizen, or you are after payment you get citizenship. So you understand what I mean. So every country now use magnifier to check everybody. So this is your own business. We cannot involve. Chinese very kind, and Turkey very kind. I like these two country people very much. They are all my brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this comment. Of course, yeah, both countries are quite kind. I know people are quite kind, and this is another element of cooperation and getting closer. Concerning the flag, actually, unfortunately, we didn't have a Chinese flag, and we would be happy if embassy would provide us with a Chinese flag. And I think next time we should not skip this. Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, we continue with the questions. You, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Wang, and I'm a master student from Hacettepe University and also the University of Chinese Academy of Social Sciences in Beijing. And my question is to Kadir Hojiang and Hakkı Hojiang about the future of the Iran, and what do you think of the future of the Iran since the war with Israel? Because I noticed that several days ago, the PKK branch of Iran issued a very meaningful and supportive statement. In the statement, it says that the reason and the situation between the conflicts of the conflict between Iran and Israel is because of the Islamic regime of Iran, and as long as the regime exists, the situation will be worse. And also the PKK branch also called for the people from Iran to overthrow the regime. And for your opinion, do you think is there any possibility that Iran will be overthrown from their internal parts? And also, like, I know that now in Turkey it's not like this problem, but like in the Chinese social media, there are now everything is about, like, now in the domestic politics of Iran, the pro-American part is taking the advantage, and Iran will surrender soon, like this. But I just think that this is mostly is just a cumulative war from Israel and America. And what's your opinion? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I think we better go by one by Kojam or Kadir. Would you like to start, Kadir?
Yes, I mean, your question is not very easy to answer, because what will happen in Iran, nobody can predict. Even I think Trump also is confused. If it was I mean, really, because when he says, I don't care what his national security advisor tells, it means a lot of things happening at the same time, and it's not easy to take any decision even for Trump himself. One day he says United States does have nothing with Iranian issue, this Israeli attack. Second day he says we are now have the air superiority, and everything is our control, under our control. So it's very dynamic situation. We cannot say anything for certain, but we know Iran is not Iraq, Iran is not Syria. You cannot defeat Iran just by bombing from air. It's for sure. But for PKK, for this terrorist organization you mentioned, it is interesting for me because most of the air attacks happening in Tabriz and Kermanshah, in western part and northwest part of Iran, which basically a target of the PKK, other Kurdish separatist movements, and even maybe other minorities rather than just Kurds. So again, it's not easy. You need to have this kind of air attacks for months, not for days. Then maybe Iranian army could not answer. But another indication is that Israel is sometimes bombing some places. They are not very strategic one. I mean, not air defense, not nuclear one. For example, it's just, ground forces. Why do you need to bomb tanks and, these armored vehicles? What's the purpose? So it shows that they are bombing because of some political reasons, not just strategic, targets. So we need to see and wait, because as I said, Iranians, Khamenei doesn't know what will happen tomorrow. And Trump is, I think, is the same, and Netanyahu as well.
Okay, Hakkı Hocam, would you like to add anything?
Just one thing I want to add, and after question, what I realized that the nature of the conflict is really questionable, because still we haven't decided yet what kind of things happening in Iran. Is that a really declared war on Iran, or is there a terrorist, targeted by Israel? All the Israeli action against the Iran now unlawful, and so we need a redefinition of it first of all to understand what will happen next. The second issue I want to mention is about the regional integration help. So what happened to Shanghai Cooperation Organization? Iran is a member of it, right? So that maybe we have to discuss with Chinese friends, and so if there will be a regional integration process in the Middle East, so what will happen? We don't know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you.
Hello all, my name is Samah Karame. I'm international relations student in IBO. My question is about the possibility of the return of a nuclear deal framework with Iran. In 2015, there was the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, and I think China was a part of it. And the Obama administration, to a certain extent, succeeded in striking this deal with Iran. Then Trump administration came, they withdrew from the deal in 2018, and then the conflict returned as we see now, and Israel is bombing the Iranian facilities. So is it the time of a new nuclear deal with Iran according to an international framework with the participation of China? Because as long as we see that Trump administration is not interested, is not showing a genuine effort to make this deal with Iran. He follows the principle of take it or leave it, is not the core of diplomacy. He's not interested in a genuine participation with the Iranian counterpart. So if it's left to Trump or to the United States, there will not be a deal with Iran, and the conflict will be an Israeli file, an American file, and the conflict in the region and maybe World War III will erupt. So if there's anything that Turkey and China might make to stop this conflict, return to a fair deal with Iran. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think this question is to our experts from China, and she's actually asking whether it is possible to start a new deal on nuclear program of Iran, as you know, United States withdrawn from the agreement in the first Trump period. So that's why the agreement was not active so far, and war started. And is that any chance that Turkey and China could collaborate to start a new process of deal or negotiation? Please.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is a very, very good question and a timely question. Okay, so first let's come to the general historic background of the latest events. Okay, I would like to say this is actually a huge mega scheme of Israel. Okay, many people talk about the Jewish lobbies. Say Jewish lobbies are very strong in Washington, but I would like to say behind the Jewish lobbies are actually Jewish capitals. Okay, and in the 1990s or since 1990s, the United States divided the Middle East into two groups, the radicals and the moderates. And this kind of division categorization actually is made by Israelis. Since the year 1990s, I think they are actually eradicate or remove all these radicals one by one. Saddam Hussein. Actually, nobody knows what is the real reason behind the war in 2003. Nobody. Okay, I will come to that point again. Okay, then Libya, and maybe also Syria, Assad. You might think Syria, Assad should go, okay, and then Iran. Okay, it is a huge plan by the Jewish, the capitalists. Okay, and then when we talk about whether we are going to have a new nuclear deal, okay, please remember the year 2003, there have been very heavy inspections on Iraq. And the inspection of IAEA clearly stated Iraq has no nuclear weapon, no chemical weapon. And Powell in the UN the Security Council debates just take out some washing powder, okay, to say this is the chemical weapons we found in Iraq. I think it is because Iran's fault might be something like that. It is a country with a population of 85 million people, and it has a lot of rhetoric against Israelis. Okay, it does not recognize Israel as a state. That is, and so whether Iran has a nuclear weapon or not, it does not matter. Okay, it is because Iran is a regional power. Okay, and whether there will be a deal, a lot of discussions about that. Actually, I think the JCPOA of 2015 is a very good deal. Okay, there are only two approaches to make Iran's nuclear program peaceful. The first one is remove all the nuclear facilities, or remove some of the nuclear facilities. Okay, destroy all this. That is one approach. The second approach is that Iran keep all the facilities under the watch of IAEA to make sure that Iran is not going to weaponize its nuclear program. Iran would like to say, at the very beginning, Iran has no problem to dismantle some of the facilities. And Iran also have the problem to have a full inspection of IAEA. Actually, I think Iran accepted a very tough, intrusive inspection of IAEA. So I think that that is the story. But and there are a lot of discussions about though Iranians did say that they want to keep the uranium enrichment, but there are a lot of the discussions about that. For instance, they have a kind of a nuclear consortium with Saudi Arabia, UAE, Oman together. Where to put the location of the facility? Someone suggested that they can put it in Oman. Okay, and some Iranians say it is okay. So I think it is a plan of the Israel to weaken Iran, particularly after the October the 7th, the new round of Israel-Palestine conflict. Okay, I will just stop here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to make some other comments. First, I think why JCPOA is very important because there's no time left. We still have 3 or 4 months left before the end of the JCPOA, so we have to hurry up and talk more about the JCPOA. And the second thing is, I think that we should not so pessimistic about the JCPOA, because I think Trump did not want to start a war with Iran right now. And I think yesterday I heard that Trump hope to send JD Vance to the Middle East and have a talk with the Iranian part. And I think the door for the negotiation is still open right now. We still have time left. And my second. Yes. Yes, yes. This Trump still on the deal, and third, I think there are three lines when we talk about JCPOA. The first line is Iran want to talk with U.S. side about the JCPOA, and the second line is Iran will talk with China and Russia about the restart of the JCPOA, because Iran is so weak when compared with U.S. He cannot deal with U.S. by himself. And third line is, I think, is the European countries, because I think for Iran, the European countries is a very important bargaining chip when deal with US. So there are three lines. We should not care only about China's role. And my last point is, when we talk about the restart of the JCPOA, we should talk about the ceasefire first, because right now the Iran and Israel are still on the conflict now. We should act now and to have some kind of ceasefire.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, we have a limited time because the next session will be starting 3:15. Yes, for a coffee break, we should actually use a couple of more minutes only. So we may have two more questions, please.
My question to Kadesh Bey. You talk about China-Turkey relations and also talk about the Uyghur issue. I want to know to what extent it is an issue, or if it is an issue to nations except for Turkey. Say if it is also an issue to Kazakhstan or Turkmenistan. I read this question purely stem from Daniel's scholarly curiosity. Yeah.
Okay, briefly, actually, yes, it is easy to deal with this issue because we are rationally looking to this reality, because in the social and from cultural sense, we know what's happening there because we have relatives, we have friends, we have a lot of connections since thousands of years, right? And then there is no need to hide anything. So there's a problem. So why, as regional state and regional people, we are not talking about it? So when we talk about the real problems, and then we can deal with it easily, because there is tremendous, increase in China-Turkey relations. It's not the 20 years ago. And when it, in 2001, yes, it was not an easy job to deal with these security issues. But what I claim in my, and conceptually in my presentation, and this economic rise and this economic, relationship creates a kind of opportunity for us security talks, and as Hakkı mentioned, and we are living in an age of security, especially in our region, actually in Asia Pacific as well. We don't know the future of Taiwan, so China Sea, and there are really dangerous, topics. And last, the Indian issue. India is a civilization, by the way. So when you didn't mention that this, if we are serious about this civilizational issue, it's not an easy. But we have to take consideration of everything. Thank you.
We talk about it, okay, China relation. Now China, the second summit of China Central Asia. I don't think it's an issue to Central Asia.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Last question before my last question, please. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Yasin Yorgancı from Anadolu Agency. My question is for Mr. Yao. So we can see from some media outlets that China is buying oil from Iran, and in case of a regime change in Iran, so what would be the alternative of China to buy its oil that it buys from Iran right now, and what would be the effect for China if the regime changes in Iran? Thank you.
It's a very hard question for me to answer because I did not know the details.
Is there any plan B?
Yeah, I don't know whether we have some plan B. It's a very tough question for me because I actually did not know the details about the oil from the Iran side, but I think, in my opinion, we did do a lot of things since start of the October 7th. No matter in the Palestine question or in our relations with or with Iran. I just list some things China did in the past 18 months. First, I think in the 2024 in April and October, Iran and Israel has some conflict. I think you may remember. And after this conflict, or before this conflict, China has had telephone calls with the Iranian vice foreign minister. And I think it's a very important role to ease the tensions between the Iran and Israel apart. And then in the first Red Sea crisis in the 2024 and the second Red Sea crisis in 2025, China also has a telephone call with the Iranian side. And help to ease the tensions in the Red Sea, and I think that is what China want to do to the regional. We want the regional stability. We did not want the chaos in the region. I think I hope Iran can become stable and become a peace country, and Iranian people can have a very good life. And that our Chinese hope for this region. Thank you.
Okay,
just a couple of words. Okay, since I know this issue much better than Mr. Yao, sorry. Okay, we did import a lot of oil from Iran. Okay, and there are a lot of reports, but I think I'm not going to mention about the details about that. But anyway, a lot. It is because that we only recognize the sanctions of the UN. We never recognize unilateral sanctions by the United States, okay? And our import of oil from Iran is for political reasons. It's not for commercial or economic reasons, okay? And it's a lot of trouble. It's a lot of trouble, okay? And nowadays, many countries want to sell oil to us. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Russia, okay? Venezuela, all these countries want to. It's no problem for China to find alternative oil resources.
Plenty
no
of
problem.
Options.
I have another comment. Okay, but many people are talking about the collapse of Iran, the potential immediate, but never thought about the immediate potential collapse of Iran. And let's just think about what we can do, since the existence of Iran is still very important, both for China and Iran, both for China and Turkey. I would like to suggest, may I suggest, the Turkish Prime Minister will have an immediate travel to not only Iran, but also Israel, to say that let's just have peace, to have some time. And thanks to this kind of peace efforts, will at least give Iran some time. Okay. That is my suggestion, if I may. Okay, my very personal, very personal. I'm a very small potato. My wife on my birthday gifted me a small potato. She just reminded me, you need to always remind yourself, you are just a small potato. I'm a small potato. Very personal. Okay, thank you.
Okay, unfortunately, time. We have run out of time, but I have to ask this question, Wang. Do you see that Turkey and China could collaborate in outer space research? Turkey and China.
I think, of course, there is room for China and Turkey to collaborate and cooperate in the outer space. As, for example, I think Turkey could join the cooperation in the outer space with China on the platform of SEO, and with Russia, of course. And actually, there is
International Space Station.
Yeah. They already Russia and Turkey already have cooperated and collaborated in the outer space. But there is by now there is no observation of like a triangle relation between Russia, China, and Turkey in the outer space. But there is plenty of rooms for Turkey to participate in the outer space with China, Russia, on the platform of SEO, and actually under the framework of BRI, brought up in Belt and Road Initiative, and actually under BRI, China is implementing a project called Space and Information Corridor. Actually, is helping these Eurasian countries to get access to more higher navigation accuracy by integrating Chinese navigation system, Beidou, and Russian navigation system, GLONASS.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have completed and we have some time for break before the last session started. Thank you very much for your 10 minutes, 15 minutes. 10 minutes, okay. We will be starting like